You think you have the perfect kick and snare EQ, you bring the whole drum mix up, and all of a sudden they lose their punch, or you're getting extra splats of cymbal sibilance. Say that 3 times fast. And you don't know where it's coming from? Today we're going to talk about how to properly edit your toms. What's up guys? EJ here for another video. And today we're going to talk quickly about tom editing. The previous video I didn't have the opportunity to kind of demonstrate the way that I like to treat toms. And for me, what's most important is I go through and manually edit my toms, which is actually physically cutting out the space before and after the tom hits. We're going to hop inside the DAW and I'm going to explain to you why that's my preferred choice. So what do you say we get going?
I have some mixed videos coming out, but one of the things in the video that wasn't there was there really wasn't much editing. And this is the way that I like to edit my toms. So there's different ways that we can deal with bleed from drum mics. One would be manual editing, which I'm going to show you. The second would be gating. The third would be some sort of strip silence, where we're just stripping away areas where there is no music. And the last would just be embracing the bleed. And I'm going to talk about that one first. These mics that were used were Josephson E22s, which are small diaphragm, side address, cardioid condensers, and they just have an amazing sound. And we absolutely, if we just listen, they sound great. However, for my workflow, I am choosing not to embrace the bleed. And I don't feel any of these answers are the right answer, end-all, be-all answer. I think what's right is what makes sense for our workflow. Now, as a recording engineer on this project, and we recorded an entire album together, I close mic the drums and also use a few room mics, and it's recorded in a tight space. The kick-in mic was a Beyer 380 figure 8, I believe. The snare top was a Beyer 201, or it was the Loughton snare. I'll actually throw in the notes below when I check the session. The rack toms we just talked about were the Josephson E22s. I had a mono overhead, which was a U87. I had 2 cymbal mics, which were Josephson 634s, which are small diaphragm. A kit front, which is my R88 AEA mic, which is a stereo Bloomline ribbon mic. And then I had a knee mic, which is a 57, placed over the bass drum, ran into my hardware omnipressor, so getting some compression. So I don't need any glue from my close mics. I need punch. I need punch and I need definition. And the reason I don't embrace the bleed is if we listen again here. One of the first things I know I do is I compress my toms. So even if I just pop on the compressor I like, pay attention to the cymbals now. Listen to that cymbal. Now listen to it with the compressor off. That compressor really draws that cymbal hit out. So that's not going to work for me. And with gating, I've had luck, unfortunate luck sometimes with the gate opening and closing properly in terms of really clamping down the way I want it to. So I invest a little more time. This is my first step in seeing the mix through that block of ice or block of marbles. This is my first way to carve. Now, with this, I will cut and kind of get right up tight to the front of the tom. And I should say, before I do that, let me just back out one more time really quick. Sorry, guys. And the very first thing is actually up here I have this toggle switch, which enhances and shrinks the waveform. And I bring it to a spot where I can clearly tell the difference between bleed and a close hit, which I can here. So now I'm going to bring this in. Get right up on it. I'm actually going to redo the fade. Only reason I'm redoing any of this is because I had a little bit of a glitch with actually the recording of this for video purposes. So now I'm kind of going back and want to show a few things. So I'm going to get in tight, and I'm actually going to do a really tight fade there. And now let's check out the front. Cool. Now we have the cymbal to deal with. Now looking at the cymbal, anybody that's processed vocals might realize that cymbal hits look a lot like what we end up de-essing. Just doesn't look like a wave form in terms of waviness. It looks way more solid. So we're going to cut this, and now we can see right around where I have the cursor here is where we go from what looks like resonance to a cymbal hit. So I'm going to bring this into right about that point, and you can see there's a little cymbal. Now I bring the line through and like right tight down. Now let's listen. And from here I will fine tune. Don't even need to. So now I have everything I need, the articulation, but I don't have the cymbal hit. And I am free to compress, pop that compressor on. Nice. No cymbals coming up in my mix. Nothing to worry about destructively. Now, when I pop down here to a section I already edited, and this one's even more dramatic because there's a drum solo right here. I'll play through this section. Little wipeout action. Okay, so you might be asking, hey man, you talk about all this destructive stuff, like I'm hearing a couple little cymbal splashes in there, and I'm pretty sure I'm hearing a little snare drum in the back. Yes, because a big part of my style as well, or the way I like to approach things, is organically, and I want a transparent drum performance. And I could over chop this, but that's not the vibe I'm going for. And I also know that I'm not too worried about the little instances where I have a couple, moments of simultaneous snare and floor tom hitting at the same point in time, because my snare mic's going to be there doing its thing. And the tom itself is in any of these direct mics, it's the more prevalent and upfront sound. So I'm not concerned about it. If I get into my mixing phase and I do hear something that is irritating me about that, then I'll go in and address it. But for now, I'm still getting 99% of the toms in there, that proximity punch, and I'm not really concerned about the bleed. It's really all the other areas, big cymbal hits and things like that, which kind of brings us to, as you're going through this, I think we all start cursing, oh man, why is this drummer using the tom so much? Anything's going to feel like it's taken a million hours when you're doing this, and we start wishing we were working with an AC/DC style drummer who's all, hi-hat, kick, and snare. But really, it's worth it. And as you're going through it, you could absolutely pop on a podcast or whatever. I make a full day of this. So the band and I, we recorded a full record together, and today's my day to go through and do all these manual edits. And it's the first step. And as I go through it, for me, it excites me because I can start to hear the performances tighten up. And as I'm listening to this, it's helping me formulate mix ideas and write things down and start to, get a good approach on how I want to really mix this. The other thing with a drummer like this, who is a phenomenal drummer, is he had an amazing relationship between his shells and his cymbals. For most of us, if we're recording, it's really important for us to understand how to speak to a drummer or how to help the band, and especially a drummer, get to their desired results. We don't have the luxury, many of us, of working in huge studios. We're working in do-it-yourself spaces and everything else, not an amazing floor like Abbey Road or Sound City or Sunset Sound. So drummers that know how to properly balance themselves in the studio, and I started off as a drummer, is critical. And that's a great relationship between your shell playing, which would be your kick, your snare, your toms, and your cymbals. Drummers who underplay their shells, meaning they're very soft the nose, but bash their cymbals, it can make editing or gating or the bleed an absolute nightmare, because the cymbals get into anything. I don't know many engineers, many of us that are out there saying, I wish I had more cymbals in my drum sound. Most of us are trying to find ways to get cymbals out. So a lot of that has to do with the way the drummer is approaching it. And if you want to show a drummer how they sound naturally playing a drum set, set up a mic about 10 feet in front of them at the height of their head and just record them playing and show them back what they sound like. And if you just hear all cymbals, that's because they are bashing the daylights out of the cymbals. And that's what 90% of your drum recordings are going to be, cymbals. But if you're hearing a good balance, or you're hearing the kit speak and breathe, we know we have, a great balanced player, which is going to make this process and everything else so much easier. Now, the reverse is true as well. Drummers who think to get a big sound, they have to, grab the sticks and hit like, Thor, hammer of the gods, are going to also find that might be counterintuitive or counterproductive, whatever the right counter is to say grammatically in a situation. And what I mean by that is this: if you grip your drumstick like you're trying to, turn it into sawdust and start slamming your drums, you're actually choking the sound, because the drumstick is an oscillating chamber. It's kind of meant to work in synergy with the drum head. So when you strike the drum head, the stick vibrates, allowing the sound to resonate, and also the head begins to kind of throw air between the two heads, creating resonance, which allows the drum to really speak and brings a lot of that tone out. When you overgrip the stick, you're now choking out its ability to oscillate, vibrate, and resonate, right? And you're also kind of pinning that now against the head of the drum, which is stopping the drum from oscillating as well, hence kind of choking out the sound. So it's really important when we're looking and working with drummers to be able to kind of speak to them in a way that's not insulting them, but also helping to shape the sound that we know we might need from that performance in order to get, a nice clean edit and then an amazing drum mix, which again is going to help ultimately get the artist to their vision and to their desired outcome. I mentioned you could pop on a podcast or listen through and formulate a plan. And, it's only in fairness to bring up, say, a counterpoint to that, which would be something like what Chris Lord-Alge might say, which was, I believe, every pass through a mix is a pass closer to boredom, meaning the more we listen to something, the more we could possibly develop blind spots or begin to get bored of it or tune it out. And I think that that's an absolutely 100% valid statement. But I think we're all adults and we're all capable of understanding that balance for ourselves. And for me, sitting here with a notepad, writing things down to remind myself when it comes time to mix, address this issue, or you could really punch this up, or, this might be a great spot for an effect or creative panning, or, to make the snare sound like it's going through a spring reverb. And that, to me, are priceless as I'm going through and working. So I think the theme of probably every video I'm going to make is there are no right or wrong answers. It's all about our workflow. And I think the only way we arrive at those is trying things differently. So I hope in this video I presented you with some things that you might not be doing and, something different to think about, a different perspective. And I hope you find it useful. If you do, please continue to keep on the lookout for new videos and like and subscribe. And I will see you soon. Take care, my friends.